In a workshop in 9th century China, a group of monks lit a fire trying to cheat death itself. They weren't soldiers. They weren't engineers. They were chasing immortality. What they got instead was an explosion that singed their beards, burned down the building, and 600 years later ended the age of the armored knight. And the chain of events between that fire and the first gun on a battlefield is stranger than anything I could make up. Here's the recipe that changed warfare forever. Potassium nitrate, charcoal, and sulfur, mixed in roughly a 75-15-10 ratio. The monks weren't chemists in the modern sense. They were following alchemical texts, hunting for a mineral combination that could grant eternal life. Instead, the saltpeter acted as an oxidizer. It released oxygen so violently that the mixture combusted almost instantly, expanding into gas faster than the eye could track. They called it Huiyao fire medicine, not weapon, medicine, a name that still carries the embarrassment of what it was actually supposed to do. For the first several decades after this discovery, nobody used it to kill anyone. It lit up festivals. It scared off evil spirits at New Year celebrations. The substance that would eventually topple castle walls spent its early life as fireworks. Then someone in the military looked at that explosion and asked the one question that changes everything. What if we strapped this to a weapon? By the time of the Tang Dynasty, military engineers had their answer: the fire lance. Take a bamboo tube, pack it with gunpowder, lash it to the end of a spear, light it in close combat, and it sprays flame and burning debris directly into an enemy's face. It wasn't precise. It wasn't safe. Soldiers sometimes burned their own hands as badly as their enemies. But it worked on a level that mattered just as much as physical damage, psychological terror. Imagine spending your whole life training with a blade, and the first time you go to war, the man across from you is holding fire. This is the actual birthplace of every firearm that exists today, not a factory, not a single inventor, but a monk's failed medicine turned into a spear that breathes flame. From here, the pace accelerates fast, so let's move with it. Bamboo couldn't hold stronger gunpowder charges without splitting apart in the user's hands, so Chinese craftsmen cast tubes out of bronze instead. That single material upgrade created the hand cannon, a weapon that no longer just burned an enemy, it launched a solid projectile at them with enough force to matter at real distance. Then came the moment that turned a regional Chinese weapon into a global one. When the Mongols swept through China in the 1200s, they didn't just defeat gunpowder weapons in battle, they absorbed the technology. As Mongol armies pushed west across Asia and toward the Islamic world, gunpowder traveled with them. War, in this case, moved technology faster than any trade caravan ever could. By the late 1200s, this Chinese invention had landed in Europe, and what happened next is the moment everything changes. Castle walls that had stood for centuries against arrows and siege towers started falling to cannon fire. Mounted knights armored, trained from childhood, the single most dominant force in medieval warfare, suddenly faced a weapon that didn't care how much steel they were wearing. A farmer with a few weeks of training could now neutralize a knight who'd spent a lifetime and a fortune preparing for combat. And once skill stopped being the deciding factor in who survived a battlefield, humans didn't slow down innovating, they sprinted. The matchlock arrived in the late 1400s, solving the most basic problem with early hand cannons. You needed two hands just to fire one to aim, one to apply a burning ember to the touch hole. The matchlock clamped a slow burning cord to the weapon itself, so pulling the trigger lowered fire directly into the priming pan. For the first time, a soldier could actually aim while firing, instead of just pointing roughly in the right direction and hoping. The wheel lock followed, letting cavalry carry a loaded weapon without an open flame. Then the flintlock, around 1610, struck steel against flint to throw sparks directly into the pan faster, more reliable in rain, and no glowing cord giving away a soldier's position at night. The flintlock would dominate European battlefields for the next 200 years, through colonial wars and revolutions alike. Finally, in the early 1800s, the percussion cap eliminated loose powder and open flame entirely, a small, shock-sensitive chemical cap that ignited the instant a hammer struck it. Every mechanism that came before it, matchlock, wheel lock, flintlock, became obsolete within a few decades. So when you ask how humans actually ended up making guns, the honest answer isn't a single inventor having a flash of genius. It's 1,000 years of accident, accumulation, and migration of failed immortality medicine, turned into a spear that breathes fire, turned into a tube of bronze, turned into a mechanism precise enough to end the reign of the armored knight. Nobody set out on day one to build a weapon that would reshape continents. A group of monks just wanted to live forever, and instead, they built the thing that would decide who didn't. But knowing how the gun was built isn't the same as knowing what actually decided who won the wars fought with it. That part has almost nothing to do with the weapon itself, and that's exactly what the next video is about.